Hello everyone, as we continue to deal with eating and drinking in shul, assuming it's okay to drink water in shul, can you drink water during Pesukei-Dezimra? And I'd like to divide this question into two, and today we'll deal with one part of it, and that is the following fundamental question. Everybody knows that if you eat a meal and then you bench, if you want to take a drink afterwards, or you want to eat something afterwards, you have to make another bracha. That's exactly what the Gemara in Chulin, Daf Pei Zayin Amud Aleph says. And that's what we do, even if we bench on a cup of wine, which means we know before benching we're going to drink that cup of wine. The minute you bench, the benching is a hefsek, an interruption from your eating. The words of benching is that division between your original bracha and eating and what you're going to eat afterwards. And therefore, right after benching, you make another bracha. Question is, does that spill over to davening too? Which means as follows: you come to shul, you make a bracha shahakol ni'ebit varo, you take a sip of water. And then you say Baruch, Shamar, Hodu. You want to take another sip of water. Is the Baruch, Shamar, and Hodu a hefsek? And you have to make another bracha, which would be very problematic during Pesukei-Dezimra, when you're not supposed to interrupt between Baruch, Shamar, and Yishtabach. Well, comes Rav Amram Gaon, his Haggadah for Pesach, and says that the prototype of benching should teach us that, and I quote, B'nei mesiba sheyoshvin v'kfuin al hayayin v'shotin. People are sitting at a meal and they're eating and they're drinking and they're planning to continue to eat and drink. And in the middle of the meal they stop, they go to mincha. Even in the same room. And they came back to eat. And then he asks on himself, they didn't even leave the room. So why do they have to bench? Why do they have to make another borei pri hagefen on the meal? The answer is Ella. Since they got up to daven, and they can't drink during, say, Shmona Esrei, just like by benching. You can't drink during benching, so you have to make another bracha after benching. The minute you daven, if there's a period of time in which drinking is impossible or eating is impossible, you have to make another bracha. And the Rif agrees. And therefore the Rif says that prototype of benching would spill over, say, to the Seder night. And therefore he says, during the Seder night, since you can't drink during Magid, you have to make another Borei Pri Hagefen after Magid, even though you made it at Kiddush prior. Since you can't drink during Hallel, you have to make another Borei Pri Hagefen after Hallel, even though you made it after benching just minutes ago. Since there was a period of time in which you could not drink, you have to make another Borei Pri Hagefen. However, there's a group of Rishonim that say that benching prototype does not spill over to davening. Why? Because when you say Magid, you're allowed to drink. The Gemara says explicitly, Ben kos rishona lekol shniya, you're allowed to drink. And therefore it must mean that only when you make the final bracha, Asher Ge'alanu, at the end of Magid, then, and only then, you can't drink. Just like between cup 3 and 4, when you start Hallel, you can't drink. But Magid in and of itself is not a hefsek. Davening in and of itself is not a hefsek. In a word, you could say, Manishtana avodim hayinu, take a drink, without making another bracha. And the Baal HaMaor agrees. He says benching means the meal is over. There's no longer a meal. It's siluk from the meal, as in his words. And therefore, by, say, the Seder night, davening or saying words per se is not a hefsek, but rather benching and benching alone, because that shows the meal is over. And the Rosh concurs. The Rosh says explicitly that in the middle of your meal, you decide to go out to daven. It is not a problem. Why, he says? Because at the end of the day, benching is different. Benching meals, the meal is over, versus, say, davening in the middle of the meal, where he says, Madli palel be'emtza suda lo have hefsek. At the end of the day, this spills down to beautiful words of Tosfos, who brings the opinion of Harav Rabbeinu Yom Tov that says, if you get up to daven in the middle of the meal, you have to go and say the brachos again, because davening is a hefsek, because you're saying words that doesn't allow you to drink. And at the other hand, he brings his own opinion is benching is different. That means the meal is over. But if you get up to go to shul, as the Gemara says, as long as you left people behind and you're going back to the meal, you don't have to make an additional bracha. The Torah brings both opinions, and at the end of the day, the Shulchan Aruch paskins, and I quote, "Mishenizkar betoch ha'seudah shelo hitpalel va'amad liitpalel." In the middle of the meal, you said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't daven." Afilu im en shehut ligmar seudato liitpalel. Even if you don't have time to also finish the meal and daven, so you're going to daven in the middle of the meal. Im kol zeh lo have hefsek. At the end of the day, davening in and of itself is not a hefsek from the meal. From this perspective, if you want to make a shahakol before Baruch Shamar, and then you go ahead and you take a drink, and then you say Baruch Shamar, words in and of itself. Is it a hefsek? According to a group of Rishonim, yes. According to another group of Rishonim, no, because only benching is a hefsek, because that's a statement, the meal is over. And therefore, since the Shulchan Aruch paskins l'kula, I believe that from that perspective, there isn't a problem to drink during Pesukei-Dezimra if you make the bracha prior. In a word, words are not a hefsek. However, do the laws of Pesukei-Dezimra themselves maybe dictate not to drink in the middle, just like you're not supposed to talk? For that, please see our next segment.